I've heard this speech many a time, including some private practices that both Ben and Ray have been conducting with a few of us that have offered to help prepare for the contest. So my remarks are going to be based upon what he said today and also what I've heard in the past, which would be unlike a standard evaluation. And I'm also going to be maybe a little more critical than I would normally be, because I think Ben wants to fine-tune this as much as possible. For the positive, the opening is just really, really good. You've got a lot of energy, you set the stage, you have body movement, chasing the kids, throwing down the phone, getting up off the lounge chair, all of that. That's been present from day one in the speech, and you are just getting more and more sharp presenting that opening and setting the stage for what's going to follow. I would suggest for a transition from after you talk about smiles have power, and then you go into the scientific facts about it. I'd give a transition phrase and say, smiles have power, and science backs this up. And then endorphins and blah, 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 blah. At one point, you stopped in your speech. I thought maybe that's a pause, but then you sighed. You don't want to do that in competition. Unless you really, really want the audience to think, but I don't think that was the case. They were just happy that it was close to the end of the speech. I noticed in your speech, there's some things that you've built up and then some things that you've dropped. And I'd like to see maybe a little bit of change. I know you've been working on the change, but I'd like to see a little bit more change in the Bob visits. Because one of the things that you dropped, or at least I didn't hear it, maybe he said it and I was just like looking out the window at the sun, is when you talked about being able to see a little bit of a smile on the part of Bob's face that is visible. I didn't hear that this go round. And instead I heard more about he passed away from cancer. Smiles won't cure cancer. Nothing would cure cancer. It kind of diminishes what you're trying to say about smiles when you drop the fact that your visits and your smiles were helping relieve his pain of his final days, even if they wouldn't cure it. And I would downplay the death. It's fine to say, Bob did pass away, but I'm sure those smiles and our visits made a difference, and I let it go at that. Also, and I know I'm running over, but I don't care. You also stayed fairly rooted in one spot when you weren't doing the dialogue and you weren't running around chasing the kids. Maybe it's just because it's a small stage and you were just concerned about getting the words out to the group. But I know we talked about in some of our practices about how you would, when you're talking about spreading colds and then spreading smiles, that you'd be walking across and looking at people and spreading colds and spreading smiles. You want to practice your body movements here, just like you're practicing the words, so that you remember that that's what you're going to do. And you were also talking about actually looking at a member of the audience, maybe even pointing and saying, don't you smile, and I didn't see that either. So we want to get those gestures back in there that we are going to play up the power of your words. And on a final note, the dialogue with the wife, you've raised your pitch and that's great, but you didn't continue the dialogue. You said a couple lines and then you went back to just telling us what you said. I would finish up having that be dialogue as well. Otherwise it comes off almost like a throwaway, rather than really setting the stage for what's to follow. And I'm out of time, and I'm out of here.
I'd like to take a second to thank Marilyn very much, because I counted, I believe, 6 to 7 specific thoughts that she shared with our competitors. And that's the way Toastmasters works. Great job. That was a competition level evaluation. Thank you.
I'd be disqualified.
True.
Yeah, but I'm the general evaluator. I can make those decisions. No, nice job. And let's go through the round robin. Any further thoughts? And I would say, raise your hand, I'll say go for it, and then turn to Benjamin and let him know what you're thinking. Thank you. Melinda.
So Ben, your opening has tightened up so much since the first time I've seen it. It's an awesome opening. I think it would do well if you actually had the phone in your hand and then tucked it into a pocket. Just a couple of things. I disagree with Marilyn. I did see you point to specific members and say, don't you smile, but I anticipated a third time, and it kind of left me hanging when it wasn't there. So threes kind of have a power in speeches. Couple of sentences that you said that were a little awkward grammatically. One of them was when you talked as Eve for the first time. No, your wife. My wife Eve says as she. It would be better grammatically and kind of shorten it a little bit to say, no, your wife, as she taps me on my shoulder. The other time is several dates later and many smiles later. It could be easier stated as several dates and many smiles later, which would be a little bit more artistically, more than grammar. You're still doing something with your face and your mouth when you're not talking. And maybe it's because I pointed this out to you once before. Mm-hmm. It's not the whole licking your lips thing anymore, but you can't keep your mouth still for some reason when you're not talking. So just be aware of that. It might detract, or it might distract some folks in the audience.
Other thoughts? Meg?
A couple things. I agree about the Bob thing. I think it would be very helpful to have a little more about seeing evidence of him being like his spirits being buoyed, and not talking as much about his death. Also, genuine, you said genuine very distinctly, and it made me think of the rapper, so I would watch that. At the end, I feel like even though you're storming after the kids, you could sound and look a little less angry, because then you say, and then I smiled. I understand why you do that, but I think maybe just like a little bit less anger. And the last thing is, I really liked that you talked about the science behind endorphins. I think it would be cool if you worked in something very short about the mirror neurons thing, because when you smile and somebody smiles back, it's like literally like their brain thinks they're smiling. So that might be another little scientific thing you could add. That's it. Good job.
Thank you. And Rich?
So practice, and practice, because I could see times when you were thinking. I think I went to your facial expression thing, and you could see that. So that I think will be overcome with time. I felt like the first time that I saw this, you really, and then you did it in the competition, you really threw down the gauntlet on your competition is regarding your energy and how you came across. And this time, I think maybe because you were polishing it up and there was just a lot of thinking going on while you were up there that really kind of hindered that natural flow of energy. So I thought it was really more subdued than before. And so that came across, and maybe it'll be fixed with time. The other thing is, you had, how many C words? You had cure, contagious. Was there 3 C words? Was the first one? Cancer, but was there another C word, or
no,
did you mean
inviting?
Oh, okay. So it wasn't just
invitation.
So you might, but early on, so we kind of have an idea of where you're going to be going with the speech. Just say, somehow introduce that a smile is inviting, it's a cure, and it can be contagious, and then come back to them later. I don't know, just because I was kind of confused as far as your, I was thinking for the speech development one, just the structure of it. I was a little confused where it was going, but if you kind of throw it out there ahead of time, it might help. Just a thought.
Other thoughts? Right here.
I think that was your best one yet. So you keep getting better. And I'm torn about you leaving the pencil part out that you stick in your mouth.
That was a mistake.
Oh.
I don't think you lost anything by leaving that out. So it's totally a personal preference. I probably would not have put mine in my mouth at this point.
You meant to do that?
But that's all I have. I just think you keep getting better and better, and it's fabulous. So good job.
I know there are others. Who else?
Just a quick one, Rob.
Go ahead.
So when you talk towards the end about like passing someone in the hall and making it a purposeful smile, and you said kind of like two things will happen. It would be nice, and maybe I just missed it, but for you to give that genuine smile, just pause for a second and just give us like your best, most genuine smile, just to show us what you mean, because you talk about how that smile should be sincere and how it should look, but so I would think it would help if you just took a minute to do that and then just move on. Just a little thing, that's it. Otherwise, I thought it was great. It gets better every time I've seen it, so great job.
One more.
One more real quick, I forgot. I disagree with Marilyn, sorry, where she says kind of keep the death of Bob down a little bit. I disagree with that, because you bring out my emotion with that little story, and it touches me. So that's my opinion, and this is the joy of evaluations. They're all opinions, so you just kind of go with what you feel.
Thank you very much. Any other real quick ones? If not, I'm going to call this round robin over. And I want to make note that 16 comments came up.